What's up, PlayStation Universe, and welcome to episode 35 of PlayStation Fix. My name is Will Robinson, and joining me this week, we got senior editors Kyle Prawl.
Good to be here.
Good to have you. And we got another senior editor, Tim Nunes.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
You're a regular at this point. I think
Yes.
two appearances is what's required of you to join the pantheon of PlayStation Fix legends. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Hey, pizza ready for the oven. Thanks. Yum.
Yeah. So, Tim likes to read things that are in front of him. So, he's got a good. Are you enjoying your pizza?
Actually, it's been gone for a while, but it was a naan pizza, not like naan, but like naan as in, like the bread.
not. Okay, I was like, what?
Okay, yeah, I thought we were going for something philosophical there.
Yeah, it's really existential pizza you're having.
What
Okay.
type
Oh
of
no,
do you
it
have
was not as deep
anti-pizza?
as the dish was.
Okay. Well, anyway, for episode 35, our topic this week, what we're going to talk about is, I think one that we're all really excited to just kind of dive into right now. We're going to talk about where the PS4 is currently in its life cycle, and where the PS3 was at the same time, and what happened from launch to where they are now, and what kind of impact they had in games, what kind of impact they had on us personally, whether it was sales in the industry or the games that came out that we fell in love with and didn't fall in love with
Yeah.
at the same rate. So,
Ultimately, kind of asking which is better after this amount of time.
that's very true. I think it was easy when we first started doing this. I know when we first came up with the idea, I immediately was jumping to one way or the other. And the more that we talked about it, it was just like, it really isn't as clear as I thought, at least on a personal level, for the
I know.
games that came out and what was there. It's like,
Yeah, I know there's one in particular where when I think it was you looked back at Metacritic a little bit and you remembered
no, I
that
just I
this
just
game came out.
remembered that it came out there because I have the
And
date
like,
ingrained
oh
in my head
God.
for the year at least. Yeah, and I was just like, this is became way more difficult than I initially thought it would be. But anyway, we're gonna cover we'll cover the business side first and go over some facts and figures of where the PS3 and PS4 are. So well, let's start with the PS3 since it did come out first. And Kyle, you had the date in front of you, right, for PS3?
Yes. PS3 officially launched in North America on November 17th, 2006.
That
That was,
seems like I can't believe that it's been 10 years.
that was a
Almost.
special day.
That is pretty remarkable. I mean, that's recent enough memory. Well, I mean, to be fair, I remember getting all of my consoles like this, what it felt like in those moments and like what my vibe was, where my head was at. But like that in particular, I just remember very clearly like the opening salvo of PS3 games and its
Hmm.
opening couple years and just kind of I guess that's sort of when I first started paying attention to the industry and industry news and opinions like really deeply for the first time
Hmm.
to kind of gauge my identity as a gamer was kind of reflected in the things I was reading. So yeah, it was an interesting time for sure.
And the magic of being able to play a game by tilting a controller with MotorStorm.
Oh, it was magical when it worked.
Magically infuriating.
That is the first one I played though, actually at
Yeah.
a Walmart demo kiosk. So MotorStorm has that honor of being my first PS3 game.
Okay, so we're gonna go for basically where present day is in terms of the respective time frame. Anyway,
Right.
PS4 remarkably, probably not coincidentally, probably planned, came out was it 2 days?
2 days earlier. So
Okay, 2 days
yeah,
earlier in the calendar cycle, but
exactly. So November 15th, 2013 was the PS4's North American release date, which if we look at the amounts of time that we're going to analyze these consoles for, that would bring us up to today for PS4, and then the equivalent amount of time takes PS3 up through basically August 1st, 2009. That's kind of the opening, not quite 3 years, like it's 2 years and 7 months, 8 months, but
mhm.
yeah, that's the point we're at with PS4. So now we got to answer the question: who's doing it better?
Who's doing it better indeed? Okay, so we've got, let's see, we're going through 2009, right? You said
Yeah,
or
late
mid
July.
2000. Okay, boy, so this is gonna be well, this would be ending June, quarter one in 2009. Total units sold. Let's see, these are quarterly sales. Total units sold would have been about Actually, I'm trying to look at this. This chart is so weird for me to read. Cumulative sales up until end of 2009. This will be fine just for comparison. Give the PS3 a little extra wiggle room here. Was 22.91 million units were sold
Okay.
in 2009, which that's a pretty respectable figure.
It is.
Among other games, it's still one of the top best-selling systems out there over the whole array of systems that have come out over time. But as of March 31st, 2016, the PS4 has has shipped 40 million units. But by January,
That was as of March.
yeah, that was in March. January 3rd, the last record date on this wiki, has it listed at selling 35.9 million units. So
Jeez. So we're approaching, well, yeah, if you think about 40 million shipped through and then bring that up to today, I mean, you give it a rough ballpark and it's basically sold twice as many as PS3 did in the same time period. Wow. Console gaming is dead, though.
yeah, it's not coming back. But yeah, just to
Hats
think
off
about
to PS4, by the way.
right. Yeah, so before the systems were declared dead, it's just like that's just unbelievable to think about that. Or is the systems now the PS4 even before the end of the fiscal year has happened for its third year, or yeah, the end of its third year, it's over double. It's going to exceed more than double by a lot, probably by the end of this holiday season, than what the PS3 was at, where before games were considered dead, or console games. And I would say a lot of that probably has to do with the price point.
Yeah, because as we'll dive into in a little bit,
You didn't have to mortgage your home to buy a PS4.
correct. You didn't have to take out a second job, though Sony asked you to for the PS3.
That's right.
Or expected you to. It wasn't so much an ask as it was, oh, you'll take a second job. You will.
I remember hearing that now.
Yeah, I don't think it's yeah. You mentioned it being due to the price. I definitely think that's a huge part of it, as well as Xbox 360 beating it to market by about a year.
Yep.
In fact, I would almost put that as being more meaningful because
The communities became established faster.
it was just yeah, communities became established. I mean, that came out at a competitive price point for it, even for its time when it was alone on the market. It was something that people thought was reasonable and acceptable. So a lot of people dove into it who were waiting for games to evolve, and I think that was also. That coincided kind of nicely with the proliferation of internet hype, for lack of a better word. I mean, with really good-looking trailers, kind of CG hype videos, the rise of YouTube, the rise of more professional-looking video content online. I think all those things were sort of happening and just helped. Holy crap! Like look at Perfect Dark, look at Gears of War, look at these things that we could never really see in that way before. Just a thought. But the price was a big part of it. I mean, obviously that's reflected in how PS4 went in a totally different direction.
Yeah.
Owing to its incredible 2013 price moment at Sony's conference.
Right. Yeah, that was the other thing is that I don't remember, well, it's been 10 years, so it's hard to remember if the PS3 had as much momentum going into its launch as PS4 did.
I
Because
really don't think so because they burned all their goodwill with those early announcements.
yeah,
People
well,
press.
the first thing was not. Well, no, that's true. This came after. It's all coming back to me now. The first thing was it was backwards compatible for a little while,
Yes.
and then they just totally removed that partway into the year.
Yeah,
Or-
and what's weird is that because of the fact that was just common practice, the fact that it was backwards compatible, like that, I don't think that was as much a selling point for PS3 as it would have been a selling point for PS4 because in today's day and age, you can't really take that for granted. Like that's not something that everybody is doing. 'Cause even the Xbox 360 had some degree of backwards compatibility, though not every game was supported.
Right. Well, the main difference was that it's just not that feasible. The reason that Xbox would be able to do it is because they were still using DVD format. So the format is basically the reason why you guys probably know this, but for people who don't know, the reason why a lot of the PS3 didn't stick with being able to do backwards compatibility was because basically to do backwards compatibility with PlayStation 1 games, you just need some coding put into the system. To be able to be backwards compatible with full PS2 games on a Blu-ray system, they had to have an entire circuit board basically put into it. So it was a whole other hardware aspect that was added onto that was just not financially reasonable on top of the price point that they were already trying to get, really, for them to make a profit.
I think that kind of
So,
speaks volumes about how bad of an idea the cell architecture was, or at least how poorly prepared they were for it. Because the fact that they had to put a circuit board in to support PS2 emulation, that literally just tells me that even Sony's engineers weren't confident that they could just emulate it using the cell processors.
mhm.
Like they hadn't even internally optimized it well enough to do that.
Yeah, and
Alone
it's
what game developers had to deal with.
so it's just it was a that whole thing was just kind of a mess, just waiting to happen. But they can you imagine what it would have been how it would have sold at initially at launch if they had said you can't play PS2 games.
Oh, gosh, that yeah, I don't know. Do you think that would have been more even like obviously it would have been even more of a death knell, but it really could have
Hmm.
been like a death knell, like something that
Yeah.
they don't come back from because the mere fact that PS3 sold anything in its first couple years has something to do with the fact that it ended up being supported for a long time and eventually climbed its way back up to be the international leader. But like to look at how poorly it sold and all these, negative developer comments that came out, people like Gabe Newell talking about how they hate PS3, they don't want to make things for it. On top of the fact that you can't play your old games on it, I think the minute Sony says that, all these loyal PS2 fans who aren't yet as loyal as we are because the brand hasn't been around long enough, well, that's when they just jump to Xbox 360 because
Hmm.
they're like, well, if I can't play my current stuff anyway, I'm going to spend half as much money for a next gen system that
Yeah.
all my friends already own.
And if you've already got 50 games in your catalog for a PS2, that's really not appealing when you have to pay $600. Was there an $800 one? No, there wasn't. Not that price.
No, it goes the other way. There
It was
was
the
a
other way, yeah.
400 that had a smaller hard drive,
Yeah. But it's
or 500 maybe. It was one of those
okay.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you pay $600 to get a system and then $60 for each game, and then here you have all of these games sitting on your shelf that you expected or were assumed that you would be able to use on a system. So it's and the initial sales for November when it first released in Japan anyway, this number of units sold on its home turf was 81,639 consoles, but they only sold 66,684 games. So a decent percentage of people didn't even have a game for their PS3, and a lot of that was presumably because it was marketed heavily as being an entertainment system, in addition to being a game system, and being able to use it as a Blu-ray player, like a budgeted Blu-ray player, if you can even imagine that for the
Now you've
price.
got me. Now I'm hopping over to Metacritic to just see if anything digital came out in 2006 to even be able to play it at home.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
What
don't
was that
think
game
so.
called? I remember buying it. I don't know if it came, well,
Really?
2006. It was either December or January. I'm pretty confident. It was like a cell-like game where you had it kind of like um, Housemarque's um, Stardust, Super Stardust, kind of like that, but it's more like
It was.
in
Oh
yeah, that one.
It's not
Like
showing up. It's not showing up on this list of 2006 games, so it must have come out early '07. I tell you
definitely
what
came
is
out
on this.
before trophy support though, and I'm pretty sure that was that was late. Never mind. Wait, that was late.
Do you think it was called Cell something or other?
No. Splice is coming to mind for some reason.
Splice. Nope. Splinter Cell Double Agent. Uh,
I'll just cycle through my trophy list. Hang on. All the way
all
down.
right, we'll wait. We'll just sit here silently.
Don't wait. I have 8,000 trophies.
Oh Jesus.
No, but I mean, okay. So since I have the list up, can I just for a nostalgic trip, can I just read everything that came out in '06? Because there's only like 15 of them.
Sure.
All right. Well, I'll start from the bottom just for a chuckle. With a Metacritic of 33, Mobile Suit Gundam Crossfire.
Really?
Yes.
Hmm.
This was a launch title. I do remember because
Blast Factor.
I remember
I
reading that
totally forgot that. I'm spoiling your list, but I totally forgot that Resistance was a launch title.
it was.
So
I
good.
completely forgot that.
Tim Blast Factor is on this list for '06.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Metacritic of 68.
It was
That was
okay.
that was when the PlayStation Store was in the web browser.
Yep.
You would click
Oh
like you would load
God.
a website. Oh dear. Days of the Blade,
So bad.
Untold Legends, Dark Kingdom. That
That
was
was
kind
not.
of a gauntlet clone, right?
Yeah, it was not very good though.
Okay, well, that's a running theme with all of these, I feel. I mean, NBA Live '07.
Definitely not good,
Hmm.
just by name.
Did I have
Bullshit.
that? I had the PS2 version of it. I can't remember the last NBA Live game I had.
Just trying to forget.
It had Jason Kidd on the cover. I think it was before then. Oh, it was way before then, because that's yeah.
Blazing Angels, Squadrons of World War II.
Oh, I'm thinking of 2003 NBA Live. I think
Oh dear, yeah.
I had a huge. That was a very
Although
long
to be
time.
fair, NBA '03 and '07 are indistinguishable.
Applause.
Full Auto 2 Battle Lines. And now we're getting to the good stuff. Tony Hawk's Project 8, Ridge Racer 7, Marvel Ultimate Alliance. That's actually pretty decent, right? I mean,
I
most
mean,
people.
I've heard good things. Yeah, I mean that's usually been talked about very positively.
Need for Speed Carbon,
I
Mad
liked
Max
Carbon.
7. You liked Carbon?
I think I did. Wait, which one was? It's been so long. I have to look this up. Keep going.
NHL 2K7, Call of Duty 3, NBA 2K7, Tiger Woods '07, Fight Night Round 3, and at the very top of the list, Resistance Fall of Man,
Hmm.
which is well deserved. And just for as a external reference to our listeners before the show, I was writing down some game titles to talk about, and Resistance is the only one from this set that got written down on my legal pad. Uh, and I think the reasons why are self-evident.
Yeah.
Although NBA 2K7 got a 80 on Metacritic, so
Hmm.
the 2K series has always been top of the line. Although I spent 2 hours trying to get my face to map in 2K16, and it ended fruitlessly. It never once worked.
Hmm.
It always got to 99% and then gave me an error. It said error code ugly or something.
I was gonna say it's just that you're too ugly for the game.
It doesn't know how to interpret
Yeah.
what's going on with my face. Anyway, so that's okay. That was just a little nostalgia walk. I remember a good deal of those games. Like I can picture their covers in my mind's eye. Um,
Why wasn't MotorStorm on the list? Wasn't that a launch?
That
Was
was
it-
later.
It was
Yeah,
later.
but-
It was a bundle. Okay.
it was planned for launch, probably. I was
Yeah.
thinking the same thing, but then yeah, it missed launch. It was definitely playable before launch because that's like when I went hands on with PS3 and this is when I went hands on with
Yeah.
PS3 in Walmart.
Walmart.
It definitely hadn't come out yet. The system
Got a
hadn't.
sweet invite to the Walmart kiosk.
Yeah.
That was a totally different time, though, like especially compared to now, because you're looking at launch differentials too. Because like with the PS4, there were like a million available at launch at least, well, even more than that.
More than a million, yeah, definitely.
But with the PS3, like a month going into launch, it was something like what 40,000 they had available in the first batch or something. It was
On PS3.
globally. It was an abysmal number.
Oh, with the consoles, you mean the actual?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that was the big news story is that there was almost this false sense of demand and positivity because they shipped so few of them, and that was all over the news. But then whenever you went online or you read the game sites, you got this sense of like, no, people aren't really happy with this. Like none of these games are great, and it's just the fervor that carried over from PS2. Honestly, that's probably what allowed it to survive until things really picked up. Is that they had just built up so much goodwill with PS2 that there were just those diehard fans. Like I remember seeing the dudes standing in line screaming, "Yeah, Sony!" and lifting their shirts for God knows what reason. While they waited to buy their video game console at 2 in the morning.
I didn't have to do any of that, and I still got one day one.
Didn't
was
have
kind
to
of
flash
was
the
kind of
cashier.
Oh no, I wouldn't have gotten it that way anyway. But it's
Take it and leave.
oh god, no, it was kind of a thing. Like I think a month or month and a half beforehand, GameStop opened up pre-orders for the PS3.
Mm.
And this is before I was even a glimmer in the PSUI. I was actually at this point trying to bid for a spot, like trying to help with writing and things. And this is well, but because I didn't get on until the time when just as Uncharted 3 was coming out in September. What? Way back when. That's way. Anyway,
That was, yeah. I'm trying to think
that was
of
a
when
trip.
that was.
That was a
Man,
nostalgia.
you got some roots on the site.
Mm.
Yeah. So I was a fanboy of the site before I started, and I saw the post. I was in college, 2006, and uh, I was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't have class that day for some ungodly reason, and it showed it was like 9:45, and I saw the article that they were opening it up, and I was like, oh crap, and like, I was reading it, and it said that it was going to be like a very short amount of time because the numbers were, like I mentioned, abysmally small. So, I was in a small town about an hour away from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I called there and I said, "Hey, do you guys have pre-orders?" And they said, "Yeah, but you'll have to be here for it." And I'm like, "Oh, I got an hour drive. Do you think there's going to be one by the time I get there?" No. No, we got like two, and like, oh crap.
He's
Okay.
like looking at people outside the store, like banging on the window with tools. Nah, I don't think so.
No. So I'm sitting here panicking, and it just so happened that this friend of mine from Fargo signed on to some messenger. I think it was AOL. I don't want to talk about it, but it was on AOL, I think. He signed on and went, I got an idea, and I told him this whole thing, and it ended up being this whole workaround where I called the GameStop store. I gave them my credit card information, and then I gave my friend the same information, so when he walked in to verify, I told him the whole spiel, what I was going to do, and they verified it and made the full purchase for me because I had been saving money for it. And I managed to get it all paid for, so when I went up there to visit my friend November 17th, I walked in at, I think it was 9:30 was my slotted 15 minutes, and walked out with nobody else in the mall. It was great.
Oh man, gaming the system before there was a system to game.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, for context, we're talking about the limited launch lineup. I just checked for the first year of, well, I say first year. I mean the first month because these both came out in November. Yeah, that holiday turnaround for PS4 saw 27 games, and the same period saw 19 for PS3. So in game volume, I mean, they're clearly PS4 had quite a bit more, although they're somewhat comparable. But
just
where we had.
Well, you have a difference
Sorry,
in
go ahead.
accessibility too, because the PS3, you didn't really have a digital front at all for any of these games.
Yes, they did, Tim.
I mean, like
in
a
the
little,
web browser.
There's a cute browser that they had. But...
Well, you're right. You're definitely right. But also, just the development talent and the games that they put out is somewhat evident here. I mean, you had Escape Plan was a Vita game. Warframe, Contrast, Blacklight Retribution, Knack. I mean, Knack is one of the worst games on this Metacritic list, and even that wasn't abysmal, It wasn't like a Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we should go through the whole, since you did the list of the games for PS3 just so people can see. So we had, how many was it? 15 you said?
Yeah, it was 19. Let me see here.
For the launch, just for launch.
Yeah, for just the opening. Well, I think at launch there were only 7 games on PS3, but by the time 2007 came around, PS3 had received 19 games, and PS4 received 27 games by the time
Sure.
January came.
But
so
the
all
list-
of those,
Yeah, I mean, I've got a list up in front of me too, just that I was looking at. Just as a comparison, you've got, well, this is alphabetical, so it's not rated on there, but this is on the PlayStation blog. But I want to read through the list because I like the comment at the bottom of this one too. So you got Angry Birds Star Wars. That's the not the showstopper there on the list, but then you've got Assassin's Creed Black Flag. That was huge.
Kind of a showstopper.
Battlefield
Yeah, that
4, even bigger. Blacklight Retribution, Call of Duty Ghosts, which is still a huge game, even though people like to shit on it. Contrast, DC Universe Online, FIFA 14, another massive game. Flower, Injustice Gods Among Us, Ultimate Edition, Just Dance 2014, Killzone Shadowfall, basically the major exclusive that was coming out, Knack, Lego Marvel Superheroes, Madden NFL 25, NBA 2K14, Need for Speed Rivals, Resogun, Skylanders Swap Force, Sound Shapes, Super Motherload, Trine 2, Complete Story, and Warframe. And the first comment on this old post from back in November 15th, 2013 just says, "Greatness is here."
That was their slogan, though. So
Yeah.
That's legendary. That's a legendary commenter right there.
Yeah.
He's got a place in PlayStation blog
The
history.
second one just says, "Greatness has arrived," but
I mean, at least
not-
if you compare the lineups, like he's kind of right. Not
Yeah.
every game in there is a hit. Like I actually, when you said Killzone, I was like, oh yeah, Killzone, but I hadn't written it down because it was actually a 73 Metacritic, and so I didn't look below 80. But yeah, like above that 80, you've got Injustice, you've got Resogun, and even Black Flag. Like I loved Black Flag. I probably played that more than any of those launch games if you count the hours in the first few months. So at least if you just look at their opening holiday salvos, like I think it's pretty clear PS4 took that cake and just nommed on it viciously
Oh God, yeah.
and said greatness is here. Waters her with cake in its mouth.
So we should
That's all you
see.
can
Let's see. Do you know? So you said by the time the year came around, you had the other games that were out by then. So that'll be a good comparison too. So what games were available for Christmas, essentially the holiday season, for where families are buying, or parents are buying their kids systems, or people are deciding finally to splurge because it's the holidays.
Right.
So like I know for me, I'm trying to think of when actually that came out. I was a late adopter for the PS3, but I don't remember how late that actually was because I got it for Christmas, but it might have been the year later. Because my first game I got to play on that was Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, and I remember that being your first game. So I was trying to jump to let me see here. I wrote down Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed came out the next year, 2007.
year.
So if you were playing it, you must have gotten it.
Yeah, so I
that
got it.
following Christmas.
Yeah, because I
and
was
you're-
waiting for it, and I was basically I remember making the case to my parents about buying this for me because of how just like showing my mom the trailer because she was like just to show how amazing it looked with the eagle flying around and how real it was. Obviously, that wasn't what the game looked like at all, but just to see that kind of thing. But then the PS4, I got it that holiday season too, and the first game I'm pretty sure I played was Infamous.
Oh, really?
wow,
Wait,
that was
if
a
it-
while. That's like a year.
Is it a year?
Yep.
So yeah, I was a late adopter for that, I guess then too. I'm not
But
trying to
but
remember.
equal amounts of time because if you were playing Infamous, then you would have gotten it again. Like what would that be? A year and 2 months after release. So in both cases, you got it the Christmas following its like initial adoption.
Yeah, so I mean, like I never rushed out. I don't think I've ever rushed out to try to get a system, just because I don't. I guess I do care a lot, but hoping for a little price drop here and there. But
PlayStation VR, baby. Which
that I might actually jump on right away.
for the purposes of our discussion, I also I was looking ahead at like what does the second half of 2016 look like? What did the second half of 2009 look like? I am leaving out PSVR because I don't think that's fair unless you wanted to include
No, I'd leave that
PlayStation Eye in the PS3 conversation. Yeah, well, which do you take, Batman or Eye of Judgment?
That Eye of Judgment game was so boring. Like it looked so cool, but I played it for a while. Like by a while, I mean like an hour or two. It was so boring.
Well, that can feel like a while when you're playing Eye of Judgment.
I was bored.
I am judging you.
What's funny about getting into like 2007 versus 2014 is that in the case of PS3 with '07, it's a bit of a tug of war between nostalgia and the objective quality of these games because there were some awesome games that came out this year that I even feel more strongly about because of nostalgia. Like Unreal Tournament 3 was in 2007.
Wow.
Rainbow Six Vegas was in 2007. But then you have and those are great games, don't get me wrong, but then objective blockbusters like The Elder Scrolls 4 came out in 2007. The original Modern Warfare was 2007. The Orange Box was 2007. And Ratchet Tools of Destruction was 2007. Uncharted 1 was 2007. As well as, what else did I write? Rock Band, Warhawk, Super Stardust, and as we already mentioned, Assassin's Creed 1. in my mind at least, the picture of PS4 in the same time period, it to some extent you got to try really hard to remove nostalgia because that's not fair to PS4. It hasn't been like we haven't had a decade of time to like build up those positive memories. But like as objective quality, here's what we got on PS4: Infamous Second Son, Watch Dogs, Transistor, Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor, Far Cry 4, Dragon Age Inquisition, Diablo 3, The Last of Us Remastered, and Grand Theft Auto 5 PS4 edition, where they added first person and they finally made
Hmm.
do on their promises for the online mode.
See, now I would almost exclude Last of Us. Well, I mean, for if we're comparing experiences of PS3 with PS4, at least for us anyway, I would have to exclude Last of Us and Grand Theft Auto from this list because I played those on PS3.
Mm.
They're not PS4 games to me. I
And I
can
do the
understand them
same.
for new adopters of the like newcomers to PlayStation. That would be a huge deal,
So,
but Grand Theft Auto was out on everything before then, so
but I don't know. I would kind of make you want to question that because even though The Last of Us felt pretty much the same as it did on PS3 with PS4, Grand Theft Auto, especially online,
well,
felt
the first person,
very,
yeah.
very different, very refreshed, very just much more streamlined, way, way better than it was on PS3. So I feel like that
That's
would
yeah.
still be part of the argument.
I'd say that's a fair point because it's not just a remaster. It was actually added,
Hell,
essentially added a different game mode to it.
it
Really,
was even the fact that online worked on PS4 was enough of
that's
a
yeah, yeah.
reason to
Fair enough.
to play with it.
Um,
I do follow your logic on The Last of Us though. That was a an interesting inclusion. But by the same token, like I feel fine including Diablo 3 because it only existed on PC prior to that.
yeah, no, that's yeah.
Oh, how did I leave out? Oh wait, no, that was a year later. Okay, so yeah, we're just I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I was like, when did BioShock come out? Um, well, I also Final Fantasy 14 came out on PS4 in 2014. Um, that again might be one that you exclude if only because it did have the PS3 version before it, and it had been on PC for a couple years at that
Mm,
point. But
okay,
I do think that coming out on PS4 just because of how that's the thing about these games is that because of how well PS4 has been selling for its entire life cycle, there are so many users, and we're not those people, so it probably won't factor into my personal rankings, but
mm,
for the public rankings, I think these games cause blips on people's radars in a way that they maybe don't for us. Like The Last of
sure.
Us Remastered, I have never touched. I don't own it
Hmm.
because I don't need to, but I'm sure it's a. In fact, I know I have some coworkers that own it. I know it's a blip for some people, but anyway, regardless, I guess I'd pose it to you guys first because I'm coming into this conversation and I like legitimately, even having all these games in front of me, I haven't really decided where I'm at yet. So I'm curious between those two lineups for you guys, who had the better. I guess we'll call it year one since it's the first full year for
I'd
these
almost need
consoles.
to see them in front of me actually, but I did remember the PS4 I got on my birthday, not on
Oh, okay.
Christmas. So I
September.
did have it earlier, yeah, but I did have to wait till later in the year, which was unfortunate. But
To me, the top five, to just recap from
yeah,
those years, on PS3, it would have been, in my opinion, Modern Warfare 1, The Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Ratchet and Clank Future, Uncharted 1, and eh, the Orange Box, maybe Assassin's Creed 1. It kind of depends on what kind of gamer you are, but that
mm,
would be sort of the
yeah.
highlights there. And then on PS4, I think the highlights would be Watch Dogs, Infamous, Second Son, uh, Transistor, Diablo 3, Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, you could maybe Far Cry
I
4.
mean, I would honestly kind of put
That's
Killzone above. I would include Killzone in that list, even though Metacritic might score it lower. But
yeah,
in
that's
terms
fair.
of importance for the system and the impact on players,
Yeah, for sure.
it's much more interesting to me that right. But for for my first year experience with PS3, I feel like apart from like the so what floored me what in with the PS4 at least was the initial visuals of Killzone really,
Hmm.
and same with Infamous, just that. But there was nothing new about them apart from how pretty they were. For Assassin's Creed, when I first played that, part of it was just like the animations were just so unbelievable to me. For like
Yeah, for
the
sure.
body movement and everything going on, and just the horse. Like I don't remember how long I spent freaking out about how good that horse looked. Just like running around, how natural it looked running around and all that stuff, and just I mean the game was janky in a lot of ways, but it just I was just obsessed by it, and there wasn't a PS4 game that did that for me when it started. Felt like I was waiting for
I
something
th
else.
I think I'm right there with you. I think Infamous Second Son may have gotten the closest to impressing me, but it certainly wasn't like for me, I think the big moment was Oblivion. I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in Oblivion's world, and I guess the concept wasn't completely unique because I'd played Morrowind before that, but to have a world with that kind of visual fidelity and that sort of dynamic like interaction-based RPG in this open medieval
Hmm.
world, like that was probably the most next-gen experience of those games that I just listed. Like to me, Oblivion was like my AC1 for you, I guess, where
Yeah.
it just like this just felt immediately so next gen to me. Like whereas with PS4, I think it took a little while to have something that truly felt next gen in the same way.
I
Which
still am not really sure there has been anything in terms of a gameplay level. Like PS3 was a definite improvement mechanically from what you could do on games from or with
Mhm.
games from the PS2 at least. But to PS4, like with Uncharted 4 having come out and everything, everybody you can't deny that visually and in the technology used for animation and for the mapping on people with the mocap and all these things has reached like its highest level it's ever been at.
For sure.
But there's nothing technically remarkable apart from adding detail, which is a really impressive thing. But in terms of just games, you'd have to look at it in a different lens, I guess, when you're comparing those two improvements or what they were improving upon.
Yeah,
P-
I vividly remember writing a review for a PS4 game, and this is going to sound awful, but where I remark that it really felt to me like the first next gen moment, and I want to say it was either for Drive Club or The Witcher 3, which would be even more recent, where I actually
yeah,
felt like the visual sophistication actually fed into making a game that felt like it benefited from that
yeah,
fidelity.
yeah, that's definitely true. Like undoubtedly, especially for The Witcher.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
it's more believable. Same with like Drive Club, that would make sense where it feels real because it's reached a level of visual realism that hasn't been seen before. And that's where games are becoming more experiences than just games.
yeah, so oddly enough, it's almost like some of the multiplayer experiences on PS4. Not that I'm a big multiplayer guy by any stretch, but it's those that have felt unique and untested for me. Like Destiny's Shared World is something that felt really next gen to me,
Yeah.
as well as Drive Club's multiplayer connectivity, like dynamically creating challenges for your friends while you're on the racetrack, just being like, oh, yep, okay, I'm gonna save that lap and then post it up in the cloud so all my
Hmm.
friends can take a stab at it and joining, driving clubs and crews and manipulating all those things. I mean, even in a lesser way, Need for Speed Rivals, I think was that early PS4 racing game. That
Hmm.
had some drop in, drop out features and planting challenges for others that in a way that felt next gen to me. To say nothing, of course, GTA 5 was an awesome
Sure.
example of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel you. I don't know where you at, Tim, between those 2 years, the first years of both systems.
Um, well, I definitely with the PS3, I was just tuned in with Resistance Fall of Man. Straight up, I played that for a long time, even though there wasn't anything besides the story.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
one. I spent a ton of time playing Resistance. But mostly, I mean, it was the only truly great game that came out with the system, but it really was a great game.
And I might have been one of the like 1% that actually used PS3 for backwards compatibility because I was playing. I had just gotten Final Fantasy 12 and I was playing the living
Oh,
hell out of
interesting.
but it was really final. Excuse me. It was really just Final Fantasy 11 and Resistance until, uh, and then I think it was that Blast Factor, and then shortly after that was Housemarque Super Stardust HD.
Hmm.
And it was really those for the longest time. I remember downloading the demo for Dead Factor what uh, that one where the guy has circular blades that he throws at people. I can't remember.
I'm not talking about Oh, not.
I
Come
downloaded the demo.
on, what is this? No, oh my gosh, this is a game title that has been
Yeah.
lost in the deepest stretches of my mind, but I know what you're talking about. Because it's like third person over the shoulder, kind of like Dead Space, right?
Yeah.
But it's more of an action game.
Yep.
Oh, oh, what are you?
But I remember playing that for a good while. I but it took me forever to get the download for the demo finished because my internet at home was abysmal. Actually, it still is.
Oh, right, right.
But it was just abysmal. So I didn't really get into it too much. But it wasn't until Uncharted when I got like very serious with a lot of these games. Before then, it was really just those few games that I had, and I actually for this is actually a really bad question to ask me because this was the period of time when I was still in WoW, and I had taken a break from WoW when the PS3 came out. So I had gotten through those few games that we had at launch, and which ones I had been able to buy because when I bought it I had spent like $900
Oh my god.
and drove 300 miles one way to get it.
Oh my god.
But so that
That's
was
dedication.
and paying for college. So I was broker than broke. So I just played the same games forever, and then once I got done with those, I played WoW. But the game that got me back out of WoW for the 5 minutes of my lifetime was Uncharted.
Yeah, yeah, it's easy for me to forget that. I mean, I probably spent just as much time playing Uncharted as I did Resistance 1. Just Resistance 1 stands out to me more as being like that first foray into next gen gaming. Like I remember looking at the walls in Uncharted 1 and the cages where they kept the Chimera, or rather the pods where they kept the Chimera, and just
Yeah.
marveling at how shiny everything was, how the lighting was better than anything I'd seen, some of the particle effects, the explosions. But yeah, Uncharted was right up there, and I think it it had that Naughty Dog charm in a way that I was skeptical of it. It's so funny to think back now how I was like coming off of Jack and Daxter, knowing that Naughty Dog was making a somewhat more lifelike game, at least human actors and human settings. I was like, oh, that just doesn't feel like Naughty Dog to me. That doesn't feel like it's going to have that same spirit of development because there's something in it. You can feel a Naughty Dog game. There's something about the writing. There's something about the menus, like the game design. They're like it came out and it was the Naughty Dog game I hoped but didn't believe that it would be, and that was an
It
awesome.
almost feels aware of itself even. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Like
for
thinking
sure.
about it now.
I just remember the first time when I think I was over at your house, Kyle, when you first started playing it, or no, I can't. Maybe we were playing it together. I can't remember. But I just remember you freaking out. It was the very beginning of the game where you're walking through with Sully, and then you like step in the water, and you're like, "Look at the water! Oh my God! Look at the
Oh, my
water!"
clothes are wet.
Yeah, and
What?
you're just like, this is just, you just like could not stop talking about that damn water for like 20 minutes. And I was right up there with you too. I was like, this
When
is
you
just-
roll in it, it soaks you, and then
Yeah.
it dries up.
And it was
20
just
seconds
like-
later. Oh gosh.
But yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I beat Uncharted 1 twice and then bought it and beat it a third time immediately after buying it in a single sitting in like 6 hours.
Once you get past its quirks, it does become really highly
Yeah.
playable, just like all the other.
But there's no other game that I've done that where I've beaten it at least one time. If I've beaten it, then I won't buy it ever. But that was one that was like, I need to buy this game.
Oh, I was wondering how you came about that. It was a physical rental, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was a rental. Yeah,
Yeah, way back when renting was
I
still
forgot. Yeah,
yeah. Back when like
took me back a little bit.
I don't even know if they do that. Wait, was it? I don't know. Maybe it was a time where you could bring in your report card still and get free rentals for A's.
I'm
Do you guys
sure.
have a like a family video around?
Yeah,
That is
Yep.
exactly what we had.
That's what it
in our-
was.
Yeah, you can get that.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure they still do it. They're
There's
clinging
actually
on
one
to
in my
their-
college town, and they still do it.
That's so awesome. Some things never change.
But now that I think about it, I'm really kind of mad at myself that I hadn't remembered this one because this is a very special game for me. Heavenly Sword.
Yep, I
Came out its
left it
first
off
year.
the list because of its Metacritic, but yeah, that's a big exclusive too.
I actually bought it 2 years ago, I think, and I haven't played it yet.
That is
I
so weird.
I was such a big
Just how
fan.
weird it is that you bought a copy of Heavenly Sword.
well, this was on my kick where I went back. Well, this is 3 years ago, maybe. I was buying like older games that I missed out on,
Right,
like
right.
PS1 games and PS2 games and PS3 games, just like anything that was like somewhat like within like $7 or something. That was like I haven't played this game, and I should have played it, type of thing. So that was when I bought like Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross and Vagrant Story and that was it Mark of Cry on PS2 just to try it, and then Heavenly Sword and like all these just random games.
For sure. Yeah, I didn't actually play BioShock until like 2011, 2012.
For shame.
What are you gonna
Actually, I
do?
don't even know if I might have been in the same boat.
I don't know. It kind of sounds like we're all on the same page then. The impression and the blockbuster experience of PS3's first year seems to trump PS4's first year.
Yeah, at least on a personal note. Clearly not in sales.
All right. Well, let's see if year two gets a little more complicated. So, same as before, I'll just run through the games. There's quite a few here. There's more than there were in the first year one, but year two for PS3 would have been 2008.
Oh, yes.
And that brings with you. Okay, wait a second. I want to go a different way with this. I'm going to read PS4 first because
Bastard.
well,
Get
I
me
just
excited for nothing. All right, go.
all
What a
right.
tease.
Until Dawn,
Mm-hmm.
Soma, Broken Age, Tearaway Unfolded. I wrote down Destiny: The Taken King expansion. I felt it was noteworthy. There's a theme here, though. These are smaller titles: Axiom Verge, Nuclear Throne, Rocket League, Shovel Knight, Bloodborne, Batman: Arkham Knight, Fallout 4,
Wow.
and MGS5: The Phantom Pain. That was 2015 for PS4.
I thought
Thoughts?
Witcher came out before.
Oh, my mistake. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
The Witcher was last year. I had it written above because of an expansion.
I was
You're right.
gonna say,
The
it's like, what the hell?
Hence game of the year.
Okay. All right. Big ones again. Metal Gear Solid 5, Bloodborne, Batman Arkham Knight, Fallout 4, Rocket League, Broken Age, Until Dawn, Soma, and The Witcher 3. Thoughts?
No, read the other list first before we go into thoughts.
Okay, 2008 on PS3 brought us Grand Theft Auto 4, Little Big Planet, BioShock, Resistance 2,
Oh my god.
Metal Gear Solid 4,
Jesus Christ.
Rock Band 2, Fallout 3, Dead
Fallout
Space,
3.
Dead Space was so good.
Valkyria Chronicles, Far Cry 2, Burnout Paradise, and then some lesser knowns but still up there: MotorStorm, Pacific Rift, Devil May Cry 4, Soul
Chocolate
Calibur
Bit.
4, Wipeout HD. And that kind of rounds out that list.
Okay, we need to narrow these down to like the top 5.
Okay, well, if I'm looking, since I have it in front of me, I would say on
Similar
PS
names in there.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
come to think of it, these things do come in cycles. Which, by the way, Arkham Asylum just narrowly missed out on our time window. But anyway, on PS4, in my mind, the top 5 there are Bloodborne, Fallout 4, The Witcher 3,
Phantom Pain.
Phantom Pain, and in my book it would be Arkham Knight. But you could put Rocket League in there as another one. I mean, Axiom Verge, I don't know if I mentioned that. That was another big hit with some people.
Yeah.
Arkham Knight
that-
in terms of blockbuster would, yeah.
Yeah, experience. And then for PS3, the top 5 are pretty obvious: Grand Theft Auto 4, Little Big Planet, BioShock, Metal Gear Solid 4, Fallout. Well, no, wait. Oh shit. I guess
Not obvious, huh?
no. Well, I guess
Because you got Resistance 2 in there. That has to be on the list.
Really, yeah, it does.
Metal Gear Solid 4, Grand
I would
Theft Auto
almost- yeah.
4,
Yes.
uh,
Fallout 3,
Fallout 3,
Resistance,
Resistance 2.
and then you either give the nod to BioShock or Little Big Planet,
Oh,
depending on
shit.
who you are. I mean, Little Big
BioShock
Planet is
for me.
huge as a PlayStation game, but
Yeah.
BioShock is unquestionably the better, more classic game.
Oh my god. I don't know what
What
to
a
do.
comparison, though.
Right?
Like, putting the two generations, it's kind of strange that the inferior device is still holding up in an argument like this, because
It's-
the title list is nuts.
It's so funny to me that we got Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5 this many years apart. We got Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. Um,
Though I would argue that 4 is superior. Just because it's a complete idea. That's all I'm going to say.
that's probably another podcast. I honestly don't think I followed that. I mean, I played way more of 4 than I played of 3.
Yeah, I played more of New
Platinum
Vegas
4,
than I did
or
of
Platinum
3.
5.
A Fallout. I mean, sorry, no, yeah, Fallout 4 than 3. And then I don't think any of us would try to argue that the Phantom Pain is the better Metal Gear game because it isn't.
No,
Nope.
not even.
Not even. It's not even in the ballpark to be up.
And I platinumed 5.
But then
You poor soul.
200 hours.
Oh my god.
you almost do have to go on a title by title basis because Grand Theft Auto 4 was incredible for its time, but I feel more than any other game on this list, like really fell off the positivity radar. Because I think like in the next 2 years, there are open world games that really showed in a lot of ways, what a slog Grand Theft Auto 4 was, and I think it shows in how Rockstar fixed so many things about even just on a mechanical level. Fixed things in 4 when they went to 5, like fixed how you control as a person, how cars control. But it was incredible for its time, and I played an absolute shitload of that game.
And you're also forgetting about the launch issues with RAM allocation and the fat PS3s that plagued Grand Theft Auto 4 for months.
Was that a thing?
That was a thing, yeah.
What-
It was shortly before the Slim came out because the Slim had better RAM allocation, and it made the game a lot easier to work because it had the RAM in 2 sticks or 2 cards instead of 1, and that was what was throttling it on the fat one.
So it was like it fixed frame rate, or
It fixed the ability to play it. I had the same issue. I'm not
that
talking
was such
about,
a
like,
broken game.
yeah, it was bad. Like I remember there were things like you go online and there were tactics for being able to actually get the game to quote run on your PS3 and it wouldn't work anyway. Like you'd have to go in and play offline and turn off notifications and turn off clear your browser cache. Stupid shit like that.
on the PS3.
Yeah,
God,
like, it
sounds
was
like
this long
Skyrim
list.
launch.
It was crazy, and I ended up doing that 100 times, reinstalling the game because you had to,
I just
and
don't
still getting the game throttled. Like I'd have to like whip a shitty or something. The game would lock up, and I wouldn't be able to do anything except for reinstall the game.
I remember how badly. Yeah, the only must speak volumes about the game for me is that I only really remember like when if you would shoot like an RPG at a wall or something, the explosion would just like the game would pause momentarily as the explosion rendered and flew you backward. But, wow, that's okay. That's a thing. Well, that's definitely a point against GTA 4, something that I wasn't
I mean,
aware of.
GTA 4 is still a game that like it always comes into my mind to go back and playing that game. Even though I know that it's just going to be horribly painful like the first few hours if I ever did,
Yeah,
just to readjust to it.
you
but it's-
really have to push through
It's
it.
one of those that it's one of the few games that always pops into my head whenever I think about what are some games that I liked playing a lot and would go back and play.
Well, Will, if you ever get the wild hair, I will help you because I am a few trophies from that platinum. And it's on the online end of things.
So I
So
was gonna say it wasn't the pigeons.
nope, I have that game. I have the main story 100%. I went through the whole thing. I actually had to play through it twice to get to go, and I was so pissed when I found
Picturing
out.
this sad weekend session where you and Will just hammer out the online trophies in a party of 2 in Grand Theft Auto 4.
That still
We
is-
need more than 2 though, because
Uh-huh.
in order to get there's a trophy where you have to kill one of a full team in a death match, and you need to have 5-on-5 to do that. And good luck.
Wow.
Are the servers even up still?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
That in and of itself is surprising.
That is really
If you'd
surprising.
have just asked me to guess, I probably would have said no.
Yeah, because it's been 9 years.
All right, so if we try to compare apples to apples, we're all agreed that MGS4 is clearly the better.
Easily.
Yep. Online was better too.
We're somewhat torn on the Fallout argument. Feels like we're leaning a little more toward 4 as the complete
Well,
experience.
3 was the OG, but 4,
I'm sorry. I can't let you get by with that.
it's the original game.
I can't let you
The
get by with
original
that.
game.
I could not stand 3.
It was
I
hard to
when,
get
when
into.
I,
I'll
when
say
I
that. I mean,
yeah when I
yeah.
as to
first
that.
played Fallout 3, I thought it was a piece of shit, and I couldn't understand how anybody liked this game. And then
Man, I
went,
didn't get past that.
and
You're better than I am.
it took me I don't know, it was maybe a couple months or something. I went back and played it again, and then I understood what it wanted me to do for some of like the walking around or some of the markers and understanding like where it just needed to lead me to at the beginning, and then I started getting into it, and then I just got addicted to it.
In my
Um,
head, I feel like 4 does more things right than
yes,
3 does things right.
and it plays.
Yeah, it, it runs. Oh God, remember the Game of the Year edition of Fallout 3 on PS3, where it was so bloated with the expansion, and this is probably a RAM allocation issue, but like it just goes to shit after like 10 hours of play.
Yeah,
There's like death claws like de-limbing themselves. Like,
What was that? There was another game that had that issue where you played for so long and the save file got so big that Skyrim.
Skyrim,
yeah.
it was Skyrim.
Oh God,
Same exact problem.
that's not in
Uh,
our list, is it?
No, that's
Okay,
that's later.
thank God, because that was.
I think that was 2011.
Okay, I'm
Platinum.
glad we don't have to talk about that because
No, for sure. But then to compare the others, like to me, all right. So the big ones on PS4 side are Bloodborne, The Witcher 3, and Arkham Knight, Rocket League, whichever way you want to go with that. And then on PS3, it's Little Big Planet, BioShock, and Resistance 2. Or
Metal Gear Solid 4.
yeah, sorry, Metal Gear. Well, yeah, I mean that
what we
trumps-
initially said was Metal Gear Solid 4, Fallout 3, BioShock, GTA 4, and Resistance 2 as a 5. At least on personal, I pick Resistance 2 easily over Little Big Planet, like without
Yep.
question. That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that game when it first. That I remember that was the first. I was gonna buy a game that week, and I was deciding between Resistance 2 and Mirror's Edge. And I almost bought Mirror's Edge over Resistance 2, and I'm so happy that I did not make that decision. And I spent that entire weekend. Well, first I just beat the hell out of the story. Then I played that whole weekend playing the multiplayer and getting actually pretty damn good at it. And my eyes were severely bloodshot for 3 days after that experience. And I don't
The
regret
multiplayer
a
was
single
fun,
thing.
though.
It was
That was
so
so
much
fun.
fun. Well, I couldn't do anything with an assault rifle. Like I just could not do anything. Like I would instantly die. Then I just switched to sniper and consistently finished in like the top 2 spots in like every match I played from then on. And the sniper battles on the huge. Well, that was the thing where it was like, I remember. I think you reviewed it, Kyle, because I remember
Resistance 2?
I think you did.
I
Was it
reviewed.
back then?
No, I
No,
was.
that was too. That was
That was
yeah, that
way
was too early.
before.
There was somebody else then who was talking about. Oh, it was a review on IGN. I think at the time when I read it was something about the multiplayer being 30 versus 30. And they're just saying, like, we don't know what type of black magic that Insomniac used to make this work, but it's amazing. And it was
And it
just
did.
like,
It really did
was
run
so
without much of
good.
a hitch. Like it was smooth.
yeah.
It really was. That's the best thing you could say about it is that
But-
somehow it was playable.
And the story was just incredible. And just the set pieces in that world. And the ending of that game was like something I'll never forget. But
The Moonlight.
it was so cool.
And then on the flip side, The Witcher 3 is one of my favorite games ever. Bloodborne was like my first PS4 love. Like I dove into that game head first, and in my mind, with the exception of frame rate issues, that's almost like a perfect game for what it's trying to do, for like the adventure it tells and the battles that it challenges you with.
Yeah, it's still challenging, but it's not like a brick wall challenging.
No,
It's
it really
as
is the
user
perfect
friendly
game.
as they can be.
It's the perfect game for a skilled gamer who never got into Dark Souls, like because it's almost on that level, and its speed makes it more accessible. But it still will like present this massive wall at the beginning where you're just like, how will I ever beat this? And then it's so rewarding to advance through that game.
Yeah, so this was the conundrum for me when we first were talking about this. When I said, "Oh, Witcher 3, hands down, this PS4 wins by default for me," and then I realized that Metal Gear Solid 4 came out in 2008, and I don't even know if I can decide between those two games in terms of what was better for me overall. Metal Gear Solid 4 was the first Metal Gear Solid game I ever played, and still the best. It was the best game I've ever played for years and years and years, and it still might be if I really think about it. Or
Did
not.
you play 3?
I played all these after.
Oh man,
Yeah.
3 was so special, man.
Tim's
I
a free
bawled my
guy.
ass
Three
off.
was three was very special, but four, nothing can beat that experience for me playing through four and the story and basically how that was my first exposure to Kojima's like cinematic experience in a lot of the cutscenes and just that final fight between Snake
Oh,
and Liquid, crawling through Outer Haven in like that microwave thing with the music playing and the cutscenes. You can see everyone fighting and you're going and you're struggling and you're pushing through there and you're frantically like tapping X or whatever it was to keep crawling and going, and then it just gives out, and then he comes back, and then the big fight happens. The fist fight between Snake and Liquid at the top of Outer Haven was just incredible.
God, and despite how great that experience was for you, you missed out on something completely, like, exponentially better than what you experienced. Because, like, when I walked into outer to oh my God, Shadow Moses again, the music played, everything's dead. I felt like a part of me was dead.
I
It was
bawled.
such a nostalgic feeling. I
I straight
stopped and
bawled.
stared at everything.
Man.
Yes, Kyle, empathy,
Yeah.
straight up.
And for me, it was a really sentimental thing because I have a cousin who actually introduced me to PlayStation when I was like 6 years old, and he used to babysit me. Metal Gear Solid 1 was his jam, and like everything about that game, from the Psycho Mantis fight to the way the screen would blip out to say Hideo, to the just all these things that I didn't really understand being that young, but I could kind of grasp how special they were. And then having played, never owning the game, but having played like the demo of it a dozen times, and then to like rewalk the scenes of that demo as an adult later, that
Life changing.
Yeah, but
And then that
that's
final
my
fight,
whole
going through
yeah.
all the games with the same guy that you were fighting every single time.
and reliving every fight in that battle through the thematic changes and the music changes and the health bar
That's
changes.
And I did
that's
go
so complicated.
I did go back and play through it. I played four, and then I was determined to play through the entire series from start to finish after I did that. So I did get some of that experience, but the point still is that was one thing that always pisses me off when people talk about how not including Metal Gear Solid 4 in like the best games of PS3 list or whatever, or like the top games, just because they say, "Oh, you need this experience of the other games in order to appreciate it."
No.
You sure as hell don't, because
I don't think that's true,
that was
yeah.
my favorite game for years and years uncontestedly, and I didn't have that experience of those other games going at it. So like just imagining the extra impact that would have had if I had waited or if I had played the others before that is just almost I almost can't even like fully understand that. Considering how much I loved the game on its own the first time I played through it.
Yeah, to some extent, I can't either because I didn't play 2 or 3 before playing 4. Like 1 was the only one that I had played to completion.
You know, Kyle, it's kind of funny that we have kind of similar origin stories with PlayStation. Well, we had cousins introduce us to them.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot, the Orig was the first
Yeah,
game
that was
I
for
saw
me
running
too.
on a PS1.
Yeah, my cousins had a PS1, and I think I played. Well, it was Crash Bandicoot and it was Brave Fencer Musashi. I'll never forget that. I'm still waiting for that to come over on PlayStation Store, and it's never happened.
Well, lucky for you, they're working on Brave Fencer Musashi remake right after FF7 remake, so
Are they actually? That'd be cool.
you can hope. You can
Yeah,
hope, can't you?
I'm kidding. But
Yeah,
yeah, so there's that, and then there's Witcher 3, which
I
is
know.
like
The Witcher 3 is one of the greatest role-playing games ever made.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the problem, is that there's emotional resonance with MGS4.
Yeah.
And they're not even in the same genre, but MGS4 is somewhere in my top 10 games of all time, and The Witcher 3 also is. To be able to parse those, that's like a totally different conversation. I don't even know if I could at this moment, but
Yeah, and we've gone on. I know Tim wasn't involved, but we've gone on and on and on and on about how great The Witcher 3 is in past podcasts. If you go and look them up, if you haven't heard, but it's just unbelievable, like what they were able to accomplish, what that team was able to accomplish with The Witcher 3, and how they were able to make such a really, really cool and intricate world come to life.
the
and
intricacy,
feel alive.
Yeah, absolutely, and to have something on such a big scale be intricate to an unbelievable degree is what is its true achievement. To have something that large feel so cultivated and feel so thoughtful.
Yeah. and not
Still
feel.
blows me away to think about.
Yeah,
I guess we got to move on to 2016 to
yeah.
just
I mean, we
bring
we didn't even talk
high
about
low
yeah
home.
we didn't even talk about BioShock or anything. The others.
Which I almost feel like
And
I
Arcade-
mean,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, but it's just like that's the thing. So do we have a decision on which had the better second year?
I'm personally going to lean ever so slightly toward PS4.
Okay, interesting. I'd have to give it to PS3. I think.
Yeah, I second that notion. The PS3, like even though the PS4 has been an special experience overall, that wave of games on PS4 just kind of
It had everything.
righted the boat. Like it went from kind of a shaky start, really shaky start, and then it to just like rock solid, just dead set on its destination with those kind of titles. Whereas the PS4 was kind of just on a continual glide up.
Hmm.
So
Oh, what the hell am I doing? You're right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you have to consider some of the other titles that came out that
Yep.
year, which I think if you look at that bigger picture, the needle starts to move a little bit more toward PS4, but maybe not past the. I don't know. I think I abstained. 2014 and 2008 was 2000 or 2015, 2008 is too
Yeah.
close to call.
I think it's just PS3 just had everything.
mhm.
It had something for every game. Like if we had swapped out Little Big Planet for one of those other games in that year, that's way more of a diverse audience
Yeah,
than
right, because it also had
PS4.
Valkyria Chronicles and
Yeah.
it had Far Cry 2 and it had Burnout Paradise
Hmm.
and Dead Space.
Yeah. But we did. Was it Until Dawn? Was
Until
2015
Dawn,
though, so there is
uh,
the horror aspect in there that was still. I mean, not even just a little bit of a horror aspect. That was like the standout title for a huge audience of people.
Rocket League as well continues to
Yeah.
be to this day an kind of one of PS4's first esports victories actually.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so let's bring it to the present day. 2016 for PS4 versus first half of 2009 for PS3. On PS3, if we only look at up through July 30th, which is our date of comparison, really the standouts are Infamous 1, Resident Evil 5, Killzone 2, and Street Fighter 4. On PS4 in the same time period, well, there was Overwatch and The Witness, but really Uncharted 4 is what I'm dancing around. Uncharted 4, Overwatch, The Witness, Dark Souls 3, Ratchet and Clank. I would even, as a personal note, I mean, Life is Strange scored really highly on Metacritic. I think that's somewhat noteworthy, as well as Doom, because a lot of people like Doom, even though I didn't play it. But really, the highlights are Killzone 2 and Infamous versus Uncharted 4, Overwatch, Dark Souls 3, The Witness, that kind of stuff. So at least from where I'm sitting, PS4 has this year so far.
Yeah,
I mean, and I'm a Killzone 2 guy.
I love. Oh God, yeah. Actually, I gotta think about that too. But I mean, if you're comparing the best, well, the original Infamous though, that's an interesting thing. A totally new IP.
First platinum.
No, it's interesting.
That's
My
a-
first
because
platinum
I'm-
was Sly Cooper HD.
Mine was Skyrim.
Wow.
Yeah. I was late to the platinum party, but I went hard in the platinum
Yeah,
party.
you came in with a bang. You came in halfway through the party, you're like, boom!
That's why I'm glad we're not talking about Skyrim today, because I was
Right,
just like.
right.
But anyway, but yeah, for the original Infamous, that was such a special game.
Mhm.
And that was another thing. Is the same with Naughty Dog, where it was like when they first did Uncharted, you're like, is this actually going to work? This can't be a good game because they're cartoony. That's what they do. And that's what Sucker Punch always did. They did cartoony games that were just funny and all these things. But now they're trying to do like a dark, serious, like superhero-ish type of game. And it's like, no, this can't work. And it just totally stole the show. And it was so good. And it laid such a great groundwork for the second game.
It
Yeah,
did.
that's one big difference too. Like when you compare the two console libraries, you have a PS3 where like everyone kind of just doubted it,
Yeah.
and with every doubt there was a counter of success. Whereas
Yeah.
with the PS4, everyone just expects everything to be good enough to buy, good enough to go to the next game, good
Yeah.
enough to do this sort of thing. But I don't really want to make this argument for the case of PS3 winning because that's far from the truth. But Killzone 2 was a massive jump from Killzone. for instance.
Hmm.
Infamous is a massive jump in terms of of concept
Complexity and
and
stuff.
philosophy from where they were with Sly.
It
Yeah.
was.
And
I don't think Infamous was great and an awesome debut. I feel like of the games we meant, well, okay, discounting RE5 of like the few that we're talking about here, it probably holds up the least well today. But it was a
Yeah, sure.
great debut for that franchise.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the if that's the singular counterpoint to Uncharted 4, it's not going to win.
No,
So it's
not
like,
even.
but
And even
Killzone
Killzone
2
2.
still the game with the best knife ever made in video game history.
At least the most effective.
That was so much fun. I know I've said this before and I've said it to Kyle, but I when I played I put it on the hardest difficulty. Can't remember what that difficulty was, but I managed to clear the first like 2 or 3 levels using only the knife, and that was like my proudest video game moment for that game anyway.
The hardest
Wow.
moment of beating that game on Elite, which is the difficulty you're thinking
Yeah,
of, was actually the last
the
level.
sniping fight, yeah, with
That fight was stupid.
But the knife is the key to winning also.
Mhm.
I mean, you actually like it's kind of the, at least at the time when I got that platinum, it was the accepted strategy to hide behind a specific pillar with the knife and wait for like 2 minute increments before dashing out to slice somebody and then
Mhm.
returning to hide. And even then somebody's RPG could snap you from
You
behind cover, but
you platinum Killzone 2?
not the multiplayer stuff. I shouldn't have said platinum, but no, I
I was
got
gonna
the
say I bow to you, sir. Holy
no,
crap!
no, I wasn't like number 1 in the nation on Killzone 2. No, 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 no. Correct the record.
Oh, that's
No,
right. That's
that
when
trophy,
trophies were
gross.
stupid.
yeah, they were
Ah,
just completely ridiculous.
Killzone
I
3
feel
got
sorry
platinum.
for. I mean, it would be rough to be a compulsive trophy hunter with that stain on your record to have Killzone be at like 98% or whatever, because it's not happening.
mhm.
Yeah, it's
Although if the servers are still live, you might have a chance at it.
they are.
Like how you just know these things.
Well, between
I,
GTA 4 and Killzone 2, it sounds like your weekend is sorted.
Yeah, really.
yeah, doing Final Fantasy 14. Yeah, sorted.
That said, good for you, by the way.
Mhm.
That said, in my book at least, Uncharted 4 is the undisputed king of all these games we're talking about.
Mhm.
It maybe not in terms of, oh, it was an amazing debut for a series, which it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was the exact opposite. A it was a finale done to perfection. I mean, it was a literal perfect end to a PlayStation icon. It's one of the greatest games I've ever played.
Okay. I don't wanna stop you because it's gorgeous. That what you're saying is gorgeous, but don't spoil it. I still haven't finished it.
Oh my God.
I'm like one of 1% that hasn't finished it yet.
And you're playing
Wow.
Final Fantasy 14 this weekend? This is like the only time I will scold you for playing Final Fantasy 14, Tim.
I'm really glad you stopped me because I mean I wasn't gonna go there anyway because you never know who's listening. But
Yeah, that's true.
okay, we'll say no more about that. But
How far
Uh,
are you? Like roughly, like if you know
Um,
chapter wise, you don't have to give
yeah,
any
I was about
details.
ready to say what happened. Chapter 9,
okay, all right.
not far.
How many
but
chapters? Are there like 20,
There's 21 technically,
21? Okay.
but I mean
Alright.
21 is just kind of like
Yeah. So you got about you're like halfway ish.
ish, yeah.
Okay. You
Have a
can
good-
knock that out this weekend. And then you
I
can
really should
you,
finish it.
you really, really should. But yeah, in terms of the games for this year, these years that we're talking about, it's absolutely is just like it's
And
it's
you can even
better.
look beyond Uncharted 4. I mean, Overwatch is a gaming phenomenon, whether you're big into
Yeah.
multiplayer or not. It's the hot shit, and it continues to be.
I
Um,
can't. I can't play it.
Have you
Um,
tried to?
Yeah. It's just what I like about it is that it's refined, right? And
Yep.
and each character has its own dynamic, and it's very cool.
Mhm.
Everyone is equally overpowered, which is a nice
Yep.
balancing point. But it's shallow.
Yep.
There's nothing else to it except for just playing each character, getting to know them, do them all, get trophies, whatever. It's shallow. I was so bored.
Yep.
I think I'm there with you, and what it really reminds me of is Team Fortress 2, which
Yeah, and I couldn't get into that either.
yeah, and neither could I, and I'm not an Overwatch player either because it's like what you see is what you get, and the whole point of those games is to be the ultimate polish to a crystal sheen because it's such a tight experience, kind of like Counter-Strike 1.6. Like it exists for its purpose, and if that purpose and if that moment-to-moment gameplay doesn't really speak to you, there's not much there for you. But for many, many people, it does. And
Yeah.
they don't need more
Counter-Strike
than like I played Counter-Strike for years playing two maps, you know? That's all that game really was, on at least in a competitive sense.
Yeah, Overwatch is definitely it's fully polished in what it does, and I think it does what it wants to do extremely well. But I mean, it was the unfortunate comparison at the same time as just like when Battleborn came out right before, and I personally like Battleborn as a game more. I think it's more engaging. It's got a lot more content to do. Like with it, it has actually a story mode to go along with it, not just little trailers and stuff that you can find externally.
Little vignettes.
And I think the gameplay, the speed of the gameplay is what makes it more attractive to me too. I really loved, once I got used to the slower pace of Overwatch and just kind of the uniqueness of some of the characters, I started getting into it a lot. But if I hadn't been specifically working on playing Overwatch to help with like some content things, I would have kept playing Battleborn. Just because I just enjoyed my time with that more, and you felt more like a hero in that game than you did in Overwatch, at least in my view. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
I
seen
mean-
some crazy things in Overwatch, which is another
Yeah.
part of the reason why I kind of was deterred by it. Everyone's so good so quickly in there, and and the fact that it's not a
Yeah.
deep game makes me not want to immerse myself in it.
It comes with the Blizzard territory.
Yeah,
Drawing in those crowds of people that are just too good too quickly and essentially dominate the game. That's what's unfortunate about having a game that is such a one-note thing. And Counter-Strike was the same way. Team Fortress is the same way. Is that with each passing day, the barrier to entry is higher and higher, but that pool of content that you unlock by becoming good at it always stays the same. So a year after its launch, you might have to spend weeks being good enough at Overwatch to enjoy it, only to find out it's still only got whatever,
Sure.
10 maps and 20 characters.
And that's the one thing that I liked about Battleborn more too, is just because that Overwatch doesn't commit to it doesn't commit to being a MOBA, which it totally is in so many ways. But it stays in the shooter route, meaning that the characters don't level up as you play, which Battleborn does that. So you have a little bit more of a even playing field when you're starting, and you can there's more of a window for improvement in terms of not just restricting people from being just amazing right off the bat. There's a lot more of a learning curve to it, which there are going to be those people who are just awesome because they've sunk so many hours into it. But there's a lot more interesting minutia to the game that you can explore if you want to or you don't. But you still feel like you're contributing, I think, more in that game than you do in Overwatch.
Well, being the monolith that it is, it's pretty clear that Uncharted 4 dominates the first half of 2016, or the first half of year 3 for these two systems. I think, and I'm glad you put me on this route before the show, I think an interesting conversation but as we move toward making our decision is comparing what's coming, because this cutoff date for PS3, July 30th, 2009, leaves out a lot of really interesting games that came out in the second half of that year, but PS4 has a lot of really cool stuff happening this year as well. On the PS4 side of things, Final Fantasy 15, Deus Ex, The Last Guardian, Dishonored 2, Watch Dogs 2, South Park, Res Infinite, even Gravity Rush 2, if you want to throw that in there. So nothing that's really quite the monolith that Uncharted is, but there's huge titles in here. Final Fantasy and The Last Guardian, really, in particular. On PS3, in the second half of 2009, we got Arkham Asylum, Borderlands, Demon Souls, Ratchet and Clank: A Crack in Time.
Platinum.
In my opinion, the undisputed best Ratchet game.
Yep. Second.
Uncharted 2.
Oh my god.
So good. Platinum. Twice.
And really, as an afterthought, Modern Warfare 2, although it was very good, Uncharted 2 is kind of the monolith of PS3's 2009. So,
Well, I would say, just off of that, if the games that are going to be coming out perform as I expect them to, PS3 has it. Mainly just with Uncharted 2.
what if you give the games that are yet to come out the best case scenario view? Not like each of them is going to revolutionize the gaming world, but like if FF15 comes out and it's worthy of being an installment, if The Last Guardian comes out and it lives up to 90% of the hype.
Can you do that though?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I can
that's
do
kind of
whatever
what
I want.
I'm. Yeah, I can do whatever I
I
want.
have the power.
I mean, I'm expecting Final Fantasy 15 to be able to stand up as a. I expect it to be more recognized. Well, I don't know if it,
And sell.
I would say it has a very
Better
good
so.
chance of being more recognized as a true installment in the Final Fantasy series than a lot of fans consider 13 to be, which I enjoyed 13, the battle system particularly. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't a Final Fantasy game to me,
But it was fun.
but yeah, I enjoyed my time with it. And it was also one of those things where it was the first Final Fantasy on new gen systems, so it was just mind-blowingly beautiful. So that was a big distractor for me. But for The Last Guardian, I expect it to be. I think it'll be on par, more or less, or it'll execute what were hoping it to execute in a lot of ways. At the same, similar to Final Fantasy, I didn't fall in love with Shadow of the Colossus as much as
We
other
can't be
people
friends.
did. I said
Straight up.
I said I didn't like. I didn't say that I disliked it. I said I didn't fall in love with it as much as other people did.
And I said we can't be friends.
Okay, that's fair enough.
All right, we'll just go in
Because
circles.
I mean, I played through. Yeah, I played through it, and it was really cool. And part of it was that I played it later than most people did. Like I went back to it after a lot of other things had come out.
Yeah, that's a bit of a moment for that game.
So that's the thing that I would be most. That's the thing that I don't think The Last Guardian is going to have a problem with as much. It's not going to be as mechanically restrictive in terms of having a point in time where it really, really shone through, and then gets overshadowed technically in some rights as fast.
Yeah.
I think Last Guardian is going to stand up a lot longer and be more modern. It'll be on par with a lot of modern games that are still fun to play for years and years.
I want to say that Shadow of the Colossus, maybe I'm wrong about this, could be revisionist history, but I thought they intended for it to be a PS3 release, but changed their mind at some point in development. Like said, like this is ready now, let's put it out. But
Shadow of the
Sure.
Colossus?
Might
I
have been.
specifically Shadow of the
Was
Colossus.
it that close?
But yeah, I
was
mean, I
really
didn't
close, yeah. It was
play it
like a
until
year.
after I played a lot of PS3 games, so that was kind of my main detractor for it.
Right,
That
so-
doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't help for that, but I mean that's the thing where I think there are a lot of PS2 games that were out before then that I still consider to be extremely great games to play even today. And Shadow of the Colossus does not meet that gameplay technical polish in a number of ways. It's really
Well, you
cool,
know-
but
What he's
I
saying
think,
is it sucks.
no.
You bastard. I think, and you're not wrong, honestly, on the mechanical end of things. I really feel that The Last Guardian is going to be on a similar playing field. It's going to be emotion trumps mechanics,
Yeah.
much like Shadow of the Colossus was. So, best case scenario won't happen for The
No.
Last Guardian, but it will reach a similar acclaim, I think, that
Let's just
Shadow
say
of the Colossus
this.
did.
If you want to compare the games, across consoles, we could probably safely say that if we look ahead to a decade from now, The Last Guardian has a good chance that it'll be remembered more fondly than we remember, say, Borderlands now, and which we also remember fondly. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, yeah. It depends. I mean, I absolutely love Borderlands. But
That's fair.
there's nothing
That's fair.
there's nothing as complete a package. I don't see anything coming out later this year that's going to be as complete of a package as Uncharted 2 was. Just
Also,
like straight up not going to happen.
That
But does
multiplayer
the-
was so fantastic.
but does the collective volume start to push back against PS3's volume later that year? So just to recap, if for sake of refreshing,
Yeah.
put them in a group you would have as the top five: Uncharted 2, Borderlands, Arkham Asylum, Crack in Time, and Demon Souls.
That's a pretty damn strong group.
It is, no question. I would say the top five then on PS4s would be Final Fantasy 15, The Last Guardian, Deus Ex.
No.
Yeah, I'm already Yeah, I'm already sort of Dishonored 2, South Park.
South Park is going to be really, really good. That's just going to be a really great game.
Right. But I don't think it'll have the people having this argument 10 years from now are not going to probably put South Park higher in their memories than like A Crack in Time
No,
or
no.
even Demon Souls for its
Well,
lasting legacy.
Demon Souls was the start of like a whole genre, basically, a genre of game that people didn't know they wanted, or that
Yeah.
was around in different forms, but that
Yeah, they
From
didn't.
Software just
Not in
like
the modern age,
completely
at least.
nailed. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's kind of what's unfortunate about using this particular method for going over them is that it leaves out a lot of sort of these personal touches. Like if we pretend that 2016 has already happened, so that on PS4 you've got Uncharted 4 and you've got Overwatch and Dark Souls 3 and The Witness, and then all these games that have yet to come out against PS3's Killzone, Crack in Time, Infamous, Uncharted 2. I, f- at least on paper, as I look at them, I feel like PS4, again, this is best case scenario for what's yet to come out. For me, PS4 comes slightly ahead, but that's also due not just to the monolith that is Uncharted 4, but also because I like the Life is Strange complete package came out this year. You know what's weird about that is that it had episodes in 2015. I wonder why I brought it into 2016. But there's Doom, The Witness, Ratchet. There's all different kinds of games. The same thing that PS3 had going for it in 2008. It's almost the flip case today for PS4, where there's a game in every category, including a Souls game, including a puzzler in The Witness, including an old school shooter in Doom. Whereas
Don't count the witness,
PS3,
Kyle. Don't do that to me. Oh my
Alright.
God. Don't do that to me.
it fits okay.
I mean, it fits a
This-
profile, yeah.
It fits the criteria for this particular list. So there's that variety versus PS3's, kind of
there's-
4 or 5 standouts, infamous.
Yeah, there's something for everybody on the highest tier, as
Whereas-
opposed to, yeah.
Yeah, and then in 2009 for PS3 feels like a year that's awesome for Sony loyalists. Like the exclusives were great with Ratchet and Uncharted, and we got let's say a tasty introduction to some new properties in Arkham Asylum and Demon Souls and Borderlands.
And
Wait, where
But it was a little less
Infamous.
well-rounded. Yeah,
Where does God of War fall in here? Is that still later?
yes.
Yeah, God of War 3 was later.
2010. It must have been.
Yeah. That was
Just
closer
consider-
to Uncharted 3.
All we
the
got
same
was
year.
a God of War
Somewhere around there.
collection on PS3.
Yeah, if God of War was on this list, I wouldn't know what to do.
I mean, I can double check that, but I don't think
That was a game where I remember I started playing. One of my friends wanted to see what it looked like because they hadn't seen God of War games, and I started playing it, and then I ended up on like a Saturday in college, and then I ended up playing it for 10 hours straight and beating it in one sitting. This is like the second or third time I had played it or something, just because they wanted to see the whole thing, and I was like, I just love this game, so I'm just not gonna stop.
It does narrowly miss out. It came out in March 2010, shortly after this kind of 2009 cutoff window. So I don't know. That's where I'm sitting at. I think in the same case is why PS3 won its year 2. I think year 3 of PS4 wins in my book for the same reason, ever so slightly, but the variety there is not really reflected on paper when you look at Metacritic scores. I feel like there's more things to play
Yeah.
depending on who you are than there ever was in PS3's life cycle. It's just these aren't games that really cause a cultural shift. Like Life is Strange isn't gonna
Yeah.
make news headlines. Gone Home isn't gonna make news headlines, but it's a better marketplace.
Yeah, I guess is right now where things stand on a personal note. There aren't nearly as many titles in 2016 on PS4 that I feel as strongly about as I did for 2009 with PS3.
Sure.
So even I feel like I'll react fairly positively to the like Final Fantasy 15 and The Last Guardian, but it's hard to see like part of it is the Borderlands 2 or the first Borderlands, just the multiplayer aspect and some of that too, and just being able to be the amount of fun I had playing that game. That was the one thing that I don't know for the Borderlands games. I don't know how any others that I just had that much pure fun playing with other people, and that's just a hard thing to beat in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
But then, yeah, you
No.
get Infamous and Uncharted 2, which I still think Uncharted 2 is. I mean, that's the thing. Is like Uncharted 2 may have felt more. It was more impactful as a game, just
Yeah.
as a game itself, than Uncharted 4 was. Uncharted 4 was exactly what I wanted to have happen, and it did floor me in a number of ways. But it wasn't. I don't think it left that same resonance as just like, oh my god, I can't believe I just experienced that.
Yeah, Uncharted 2 changed the game. It went
Yeah.
from the maybe this could go somewhere Uncharted
Yep.
to holy crap, where is the rest of the industry?
Yeah.
Uncharted 2.
Like they
Well,
just set
so
the
what?
standard.
I'll agree that the impact was greater, but that same question, and honestly, kind of got asked by Uncharted 4, like where is the rest of the industry? Because this
Oh
is
yeah.
so much more
Yeah.
next gen than anything on PS4 or Xbox One,
Mm-hmm.
or even PC for that matter. There isn't a game today that looks more cohesively brilliant than Uncharted 4
Just
does.
the environmental interactables and the
Right.
atmosphere and the sound that they put in, the
Environment
work for
design,
the
sound.
sounds and all that. And yeah, it's
You know, I didn't
yeah,
come in here with a strong opinion about which of these games I would. And my honestly, my intention was to let our conversation determine in my mind.
mm-hmm.
Despite leaning a little more toward PS4 on some of these leanings or on some of these years, these needles, leaning PS4. I ultimately need to select PS3 as
Mm-hmm.
as the console that has done it better by this point in the PS4's life cycle. Well, I think when you look at the cumulative picture, there's nostalgia is part of it. I mean, it's easy to recognize how classic and important these games are 10 years later, but even for their time, the experience of playing these games was just more momentous than it has been on PS4. And that's including some of those monoliths like The Witcher 3 and Uncharted 4.
Yeah, and even like even though we have discredited in a number of things the Phantom Pain, playing through the first like 40 hours or whatever of that game before you get to the end of the story,
Yep.
that was still
Um,
such a huge experience. And the beginning of that, and just like some of the just like biggest like what the hell moments. Like the
mhm.
first time when was it the skulls come out, the or like the I can't remember the names of what those soldiers are called, the like kind of like the zombie-ish guys. Skull was like the name. Skullface was the bad guy.
Yeah.
I can't
They weren't
remember.
just called like the Skull Unit, were they?
Skull Unit. Yeah, I think they were. But just that first, I remember that was the first scene that were like when you save Miller and you're carrying him back and you get on your horse and then there's just like the cloud comes in and then it gets dark and all of a sudden these like zombies appear and you're like there's zombies in this game and it's like you have to go through them. What? Then they just start like teleporting after you and just freaking out. There's so much gameplay wise that was done beautifully in that game.
Yeah, gameplay wise, for sure. I think what stands out to me about Metal Gear Solid is that even despite, and this, Tim wasn't there for the conversation. We're primarily referencing this 2 hour spoiler cast we had about the game. We, despite my misgivings about the narrative and how it was left unfinished and what was said by the end of the game, it's like I can't think of very many games that have felt more strategically rewarding than MGS5. Like having
Yeah.
access to those open world
Actual
settings
gameplay.
and the way those systems interlocked with each other, the capturing of men, the equipping of your base, how that fed into item upgrades and weapon upgrades, which allowed you to plot your strategy, and then actually dropping down into the jungle or into the Sahara to take care of those, to tackle those objectives and really go about it any which way.
And the buddy
It's
system.
the buddy system, and it's so adaptable. Like whether you just are playing through it to see the ending,
Yeah.
or if there's a particular mission, and this was kind of me. Like I wasn't so much an S rank chaser as I was. There were like 5 or 6 missions in the game where after completing it, I was like, this particular mission would be really fun to try to get an S rank on. So I would go back and try it for a select few of them. Like for
Sure.
example, escorting the children out of that diamond mine,
Yep.
like escorting them along the riverbed while the helicopter flew overhead. That was one
Quiet's
that's
mission. That was one I had to go back for.
sure, sure.
That
Oh
was
God,
that was the main like nail in the coffin for that game for me. Was not the story was not that was not what I wanted it to be, and part of that was rectified by that secret or the extras that we got to see in that 20-minute thing, like what it should have been. or
Yeah.
could have been. But just having quiet, sorry spoilers for anybody there, but having her just like be gone after you spend so much time like playing with her and having her as your companion going through it, and she just like up and leaves.
And having it so unjustified.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, I'm done playing this game now. Like it really just ticked me off to the point where I just stopped playing this game because I was like, that was just totally unnecessary and just really made no sense at all. So
Yeah, there was a yeah, but yeah,
Second.
completely agreed. Just it's yeah, really that game's legacy is from a systems perspective.
Yeah.
The way all of its interlocking systems both channeled some of the series' greatest elements and then moved it so successfully into this elegant action game that like that's that game's crowning achievement. So yeah, I mean,
let's get a. Okay, so yeah, sorry to cut you off.
no, it's
I was just gonna say let's pick like the best like 2 or 3 from each year, and for each system, and then just put
Okay.
those side by side just to see where we're at
sure.
now.
That should be easy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning. You guys can correct me if you're thinking differently, but for PS3 year one, the best 2 games to me are Uncharted 1 and The Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Yeah, I gotta second that. Even though I really
Including
enjoyed
Resistance.
Resistance.
I was gonna say Resistance.
Oh,
Oblivion I did way later
Yeah, that's
for
fair.
me, so I mean I definitely
I-
enjoyed it when I went back.
I was crazy in Oblivion. Yeah, that one's
So
second.
assuming Uncharted 1 and The Elder Scrolls 4, that's up against I guess Grand Theft Auto 5 and Infamous Second Son, if I had to choose 2 on the PS4 side.
What were the others?
There's like Diablo 3,
No.
Dragon Age 3, Watch Dogs, Resogun, Last
Yeah.
of Us, which we kind of discredited.
Right. No, I'll go with that.
Yep, same.
Okay, so let's line it up. Uncharted 1 and The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion versus Grand Theft Auto
We'll
5.
run through the rest of them
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
just to see it
Year
complete.
2 on PS4, I think you'd have to say The Witcher 3 and Fallout 4. If we're only gonna pick 2, I
Yeah.
guess I would put those above MGS 5 and Bloodborne.
I would
So-
agree.
Witcher 3, Fallout 4 versus I want to say your Resistance 2 would fall just outside of MGS 4 and GTA 4
That's
on the
fair.
PS3 side of things. So on PS3 it's GTA 4, MGS 4 versus The Witcher 3, Fallout 4.
GTA.
If you actually narrow it to those 2, it's a little harder.
Did you say GTA 4 and what was the other one? Sorry. I'm
No,
right.
it's just
MGS4.
MGS4. Oh, of course. I'm trying to write them down so I can see.
versus The Witcher 3 and Fallout 4.
Right. Okay.
And this year, so far, I think you would have to say Killzone 2 and Infamous versus Uncharted 4 and who cares?
Uncharted 4 and Overwatch.
Probably. Yeah, probably. That's probably right.
Oh God. Okay. So Uncharted. So PS3 we got Uncharted 1, Oblivion, GTA 4, Metal Gear Solid 4, Killzone 2, and Infamous. Up against GTA 5, Infamous Second Son, Witcher 3, Fallout 4, Uncharted 4, and Overwatch. I'd have
It's
to
actually,
give,
it's actually hard.
I'd have to give that to PS4. That specific lineup.
Wow. Yeah, it actually is a little harder when the
yeah.
further you narrow it.
I would have to if we're going just through like the top of the best to 2 of each year.
Best of the best, yeah.
It would have to go to PS4. Which that surprises me.
What's so challenging about this is that narrowing it to those games is almost necessary just to make the comparison more manageable. Because
Yeah.
there's really, if you look at all of them, there's just too much to be able to. Because you just constantly be correcting yourself. It's not it's almost hard for one person to compare all those things against each other. So to some extent, narrowing it is necessary, but that does, by virtue of what you're including, change the answer a little bit. Because I think I'm with you, where when you look at those subset, the best of the best, PS.
Because I mean, the only like truly standout title to me on the PS3 lineup is Metal Gear Solid 4. And and then you have for PS4 for me the biggest standouts would be Uncharted 4 and Witcher 3. Like those would be the best.
Yeah.
And even though I'd hate to say it, that they beat Metal Gear Solid 4 as a duo.
Not for nothing, but my assumption going into this, and obviously, that's the point of researching is to get a better picture, but it's like, I think it says something that my instinct was to say PS4 from the get-go, just not
Yeah.
even because of recency, but just because I feel like you can't even put words to it because when you do, you defeat yourself. It just feels like it's been more fun or more
Truthiness.
well-rounded. Yeah.
I'd say
I don't know,
like,
Tim, where you at?
he's
Man,
pondering.
I gotta tell
See.
you, the the sheer triumph that came out of Metal Gear Solid 4 really just makes this such a challenging question to answer.
Right.
Because I've had plenty of time with both contenders on the PS4 side of things, but and even though I've enjoyed them well enough, like really well, especially Witcher, like I really can't say that the sensations between the two together can combine to anything I experienced in Metal Gear Solid 4.
Ah, now when you put it that way, that's kind of true.
Like Metal Gear Solid 4 alone,
yeah.
plus that with its sparring partner, I I gotta not for the sake of my own standards, but for the sake of what how very impacting that entire game was, and how much enjoyment I got out of it, both not just from the narrative side of things, but also from the multiplayer from that game too. I was immersed for a very long time
Yeah.
on both fronts.
I'd
Just-
say Metal Gear Solid. I was more compelled to play through Metal Gear Solid multiple times than I was Witcher 3 and Uncharted 4. Like, I still haven't gone back to play through either of those. I still think about it, but
And I mean, I guess I'm actually a really bad example because I haven't finished Uncharted 4, but that should say something too. I've been so distracted by other stuff that I haven't finished Uncharted 4.
Well, see, that's an interesting note too, is that the stage of our lives in which we are at plays some part in this. Like I had far more time to play and replay all these games on PS3 than I do today on PS4. It's actually really rare that I'll go back and
Yeah.
replay something today, and that's just a function of time. Like I would totally do it if I was in high school, you know?
that's true.
But at the same time, though, like if something is, with all of my crazy schedules, and at this time I was in college, I had to make time to play these games, and I made time to play those games. Whereas now I'm just working, 9 to 5, and I have my just stuff on the side at home that's very manageable, and I haven't finished Uncharted 4. So it's
Yeah, but the
I
PS
totally get it, right? But like you still have to think like, and this is still in that same mentality you had, where the parts of our lives come into play, and just the fact that I was so motivated to spend crazy hours on that game, on top of all the schooling and all the full-time work I was doing, just trumps almost anything.
Well, I mean, it's also the first time we had games like that.
Yeah.
As incredible as Uncharted 4 is, it's the fourth Uncharted game.
Yeah. And that's
With
what I
Metal
was
Gear
going to
Solid,
say.
there's no, I mean,
Yeah, that's still the fourth Metal Gear Solid
It
game,
is,
too.
but I think you
But
get
it's
what
a
I'm
total-
saying.
yeah,
Where
that's-
playing it on PS3 is so different than playing any of the previous entries.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Is given our conversation, it's just like it's just evident that PS3 was a time of just incredible growth in games, which even just in those first 3 years, and PS4 just has not met that same level of growth and that
No,
level of just like revolutionary
refinement.
stuff. Yeah.
It's been refinement and diversity more so than rapid, expansive
Which I
growth.
don't even know if there is anything they really could improve coming
No,
off of the end of the life cycle of the PS3 era.
That to me, that
So-
speaks to when you look at different scales, like the idea that you're channeling now, which is that of refinement versus growth. To me, that sort of parallels the idea of if I look at the I hate to use the word objective here, but bear with me. If I look at the objective quality of design and polish and lessons learned of the PS4 lineup versus the PS3 lineup,
Hmm.
I think it's pretty clear that PS4 is the winner there. But as an experience and as emotion
Ah,
and as the
I'm gonna counter hard.
Yeah, I was kind
I'm
of
gonna
on the other
counter hard.
side.
Now, I would like to see them make a game like Metal Gear Solid in 1080p at 60 frames with the cell processor. Kojima did that. Paramount.
Yeah, there were things that, well, this is the other thing too. Not only were the games experiencing a rapid expansion of growth, or developers were going through this whole growth process of things that they can do now on this new hardware, which the PS4 is obviously different infrastructure on what they're doing, but it's relatively the same type of stuff, but polishing it. But there is that polish in a lot of things. Like one of our top contenders for PS4 up to this point is Infamous Second Son, at least from its first year.
Mhm.
That game may technically be far superior than a lot of the other games on the PS3 lineup, but as a complete experience and story, as which is the main one of the basically the main focus of the game, apart from just using cool powers, it falls far below the likes of the first Infamous, which is on our other list, and I would say Uncharted 1 and GTA 5 and Metal Gear Solid 4, and even Killzone 2, you could argue maybe might be a little more
Yep.
cohesive as a story and more fulfilling as a story.
Mm.
And Oblivion, yeah, and Oblivion too has its own great story, but that's more work to get to it.
Conversely, I mean, I'm there with you guys. Like the two games on this entire list that are top of the bulk for me would be MGS4 and Uncharted 4. But like I can point to elements of MGS4 from a design perspective that aren't perfect. Like for example, how very there are certain weapons in the game that are just far better than the others, and there's little reason to experiment with your tools. That's like a very development and design philosophy. It's I don't want to say thematically inconsistent, but as a like in my opinion, the third chapter is pretty slow and a little inconsistent with the
Oh
feel
man.
and tone of the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But I just like so that was just to reinforce a little bit from where I'm coming from with like in theory with PS4 we're supposed to be at a place where design philosophy is improving every year. Not that it does with every game, but with some it's evident.
I'd say design. Well, that was my point. Was that design definitely is, but in terms of impact of the games themselves,
Yes,
it's
no,
not as
which is
not as powerful. Like clearly, without the except, like even Fallout 4, that fell way short once you got through to a certain point, which is surprising.
Yep.
Like it played really well, and I loved
no,
playing
yeah,
it a
the
lot.
design did kind of fall apart. 'Cause, yeah, if you get to a certain point, the game just becomes completely cakewalk and super OP. That's design
Yeah.
problems, you know.
So yeah, like the top games we have on here. Well, GTA 5 is on here. We're including it mainly because it had a new mode. Essentially, the story in that is still incredibly strong.
Right,
even
and from a
the new one.
gameplay perspective,
Just
it
phenomenal.
just shits on GTA 4.
Yeah,
Especially today when you go back and look at what 4 is and
Right.
how all these open world games have evolved in the years since.
but then the other games on the list, we got Infamous Second Son, which we already said, not that strong of a story or of an experience. The
Agreed.
gameplay was done very well. Witcher 3, phenomenal game, just all around.
From a design perspective, it might even be the best game on.
Yeah, easily. For me, Witcher 3 is the best technical game on this entire list out of any game we've talked about. Fallout 4 did a lot of things extremely well, and then just sort of fell short.
Gave up. Yeah.
It just kind of ran out of gas once you got to a certain level, and just kind of was like, okay. Uncharted 4, technical masterpiece in a lot of ways. Perfect end cap to a story that we've essentially grown up with, or a lot of us have. And then you got Overwatch, which is another game that's really, really polished, but it's got no soul to it, really, in terms of story. It's got a lot of character soul, but I mean, like in terms of just creativity and uniqueness to the characters. But there's no meat there under the first few maps and game modes once you learn the characters. So it just kind of says a lot where the mindset of games has shifted in a different direction for a number of developers, I would think, in terms of what's the best of the best and what they think what fans do want, really, but what it's we're clearly in a different. There's a disconnect in some level, I'd say, compared to where games were coming out first early in the PS3, where they are on PS4. Largely because PS4's got such a huge catalog of games that are available for it on the digitally that PS3 didn't have. I think they had to be a little more specific in what they were creating, and couldn't try as many new things or different ideas that they wanted.
Oh yeah, cost was definitely an issue there.
Yeah. But I don't know. We've been talking about this for almost 2 hours now, just as a frame of reference. Which I can't believe I believe that we did go on for this long, but it definitely surprised me. I didn't expect us to be going this long, but I still don't know if there's a real definitive verdict on where things are. Clearly, from just a pure objective standpoint, PS4 is the better system in terms of sales and business side and like everything. Like that's undisputed. It's just a better system in terms of financial return.
Yeah, and I think by the same note, I think you can say pretty conclusively that gamers who've lived through both and experienced both at the pace in which they've come out with games, PS3 does seem to be the experiential winner. Like games that have made
There was less waiting.
There's less waiting. These games have made seismic impacts within their genre, in some cases creating new genres or forever changing genres. Looking at MGS4, looking at Little Big Planet, looking at
Dark Souls.
Demon Souls, looking
Demon
at
Souls, sorry, yeah.
BioShock, forever change. I mean, BioShock literally popularizing in a modern age the first person narrative RPG.
Infamous just being a superhero game that was a new IP.
Right. But then, yeah, so I think there's categories in which they are clear winners. Like you'd have to, I think, give the diversity edge, the just consistent quality across the genre spectrum. That to me falls on PS4 pretty clearly. But the experiential rewards and shifts and innovation on PS3 is a no-brainer. So then it becomes, I think it comes down to personal categorization, like which categories do you value more? And I think as a gamer who's all about the experience first, well, I was going to say PS3, but what's tough about it is that the experience of being a PS4 owner and participating in this ecosystem, that meta experience is made better by how diverse the marketplace is and all these different options I have to play. If you look at that as an experience versus the experience of playing individual games.
But then you have the sheer heft of it being a counterpoint, because with the PS3, we didn't have things like massive backlogs as a problem and like just trying to burn through games to be done with them. Like when a new game was coming out, we were ready for it. Like we were on it, and that's also that was also a converse point, because there were plenty of dead times for the PS3.
Droughts, yeah. Summer drought is not a thing anymore. I think it was like a couple of years ago that summer drought just kind of stopped being a thing, but it used to totally be a thing.
So on the front of libraries, and in terms of quality games versus quantity, I think that's kind of a wash, just for the fact that the PS4 is, so saturated with games that I'm looking at my shelf. I have 5 games I haven't taken out of the damn wrappers yet. I never did that on PS3.
Right, and on PS3 by the similar token, I used to treasure the PS Plus games, and I would play basically every one of them for an hour or two just to try them out. And
and
gosh, I haven't really touched a
point
Plus game in a long time.
Yeah, that's a good thing you bring that up, because like most of the time I just look at them and go, okay, cool, I'll just put that in my library.
Right, exactly, yeah. And then with NBA, I got as far as the character creation failing, and then I quit.
Yeah.
But it's like we do take some of these things for granted. Like you can't in a vacuum. Which is the better sequel to Uncharted 1? Is it Uncharted 2 or Uncharted 4? Like, if those had both come out in 2009, how do you consider them?
I think you'd be kind of confused if you just jumped into Uncharted 4.
Fair. Better might be, well, maybe Arkham Knight isn't a great example because people have mixed feelings with that one, but like, you sort of see what I mean? Like, we have received these before, so it's impossible for them to make the same seismic impacts no matter how good they might be.
Yeah,
there's definitely a lot of washing going on.
Yeah. I still feel like the PS3, the games it's kind of a bad way to put it, but I was gonna say that they were more intentional feeling, or they felt more unique than a lot of games
Especially,
that are coming out now, or a lot of games that just kind of like this is their take on this type of world or something like that. Is what a
as
lot of
opposed to
games that are
making the
coming.
world.
Right. Where it's just like I don't feel excited about a lot of newer games that are coming out. And the games that I'm excited about are properties that have already existed. I mean, apart from like even just like at this E3 it was like Horizon clearly I'm still excited about, but
Or even No Man's Sky though, that's
yeah.
pretty unique.
Yeah.
That might be for me. Now that I really
Oh, I totally forgot
understand
about
what's
that.
Mhm.
coming with
Mhm.
that game, I feel like that might be my first true next gen sensation.
Mm.
That's a good point.
But that's not here yet.
Yeah.
I do like your descriptions, Will. I think it's a good way of looking at it is that PS3 was, at least in its first 3 years, PS3 was a console of creation. PS4 was a console of refinement. And I
Mhm.
think being a console of creation, like these worlds and these ideas and these languages were created with Metal Gear Solid 4, with Little Big Planet, with Grand Theft Auto
Resistance.
4, with Resistance. These just these headspaces, these things were added to the gaming lexicon. And in PS4, those parts of our shared gaming language have just been refined and adjusted,
Mhm.
improved in some respects, not in every respect. And the PS3's world of creation versus the PS4's world of refinement is more impressive. The world of creation would be,
Mhm.
I think.
Yep.
That's more
Hmm.
impressive of an achievement to have created new, exciting, intentional, I like that a lot, intentional experiences, and to have created characters, to create, I keep saying it, create aspects of gaming culture, just create new entities, comes out to me as a narrow victory, but I would, yeah, narrow but decisive, I guess.
Yeah.
That's where I fall in it. I'm right there with you. That's a greater achievement than PS4's wealth of improvement and refinement and diversity, which is great in of its own because you've got a ton of little micro worlds that are being created and micro cultures and micro fandoms, micro communities. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's easier to do that than to create a seismic shift.
Yeah. Final thoughts, Tim?
Yeah, that's just a clear second for me. Like that's yeah, the act of creation is far more substantial because like you I mean refinement is nothing without the creation,
Mhm.
and that's going to be the ultimate argument really. It's even though you make the wheel better, you can't really make the wheel better without the wheel.
The wheel was already there, yeah. You
Mhm.
Yeah.
can,
True.
Um, but I think and I'm not going to change the way I look when I say look at this argument when I say it because I find the PS3 not a definitive winner, but a kind of a swing winner in terms of the season's terminologies. But the, there's a big difference also when looking at the PS in terms of like mentality with these, like with the PS3, you know, being so far back, and it's kind of a warm place in the back of your mind at all times. Whereas the PS4 is that sort of that glowing light you see ahead of you is like your goal where you want to go, and it's very different because you're constantly right now looking back at what you had. You can't really have it again because it's already been done, and you can't really just shut everything off in your brain or go back in time and just relinquish that once had experience, but it never goes away. And with a lot of games now, like, they kind of go by the wayside as you go through them. So I think that, but there's also the counterpoint in the fact that the PS4 is still so very playable in its present state, but that's because it's very available right now. So you have this, yeah, but with that in mind, you don't really want to go back and play the PS4. But like with your childhood, you really can't, and you don't really want to either, even though it has some appeals to it, not having to pay taxes. It has appeals and things like that. But you go and you say, it was such a simple time. It really got me where I am now, and I wouldn't be anywhere now without it. So
in this case, I would say that history will always trump the future
Hmm.
in the sense that the future is nothing without it.
Fair enough.
Well
So,
said.
Yeah, I think
PS3.
that's a good note to end on. So I'd say personally, we all kind of lean towards the PS3 edging out the PS4 thus far in its current life cycle in terms of games and experience, and our fond memories of having played. Objectively, PS4 clearly the hot item in the business world compared to the PS3. But yeah, man, we just broke 2 hours.
Didn't feel like it at
Yeah,
all.
no,
I hope
it's
I hope
incredible.
for listeners, it's the same thing.
Yeah, this was
I had a lot of fun in this
this was an
conversation.
incredible conversation. We explored areas I didn't think that we would. Jumping into this, and it's been a lot of fun going down some memory lane on some of these games and what
They
they
even
were
kind of
like.
got philosophical in there.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like we kind of know what we're doing. But yeah, so thanks so much for listening to episode 35 of PlayStation Fix. Let us know what you guys think of our massive discussion, and I'm sure you have a lot of opinions yourself listening to this, and a lot of things that we said about this, because we clearly didn't always agree with each other, which I can't. It's only 2 hours going into this, and we probably left out some of your favorite games when we narrowed down our list too. So let us know in the comments below what some of your favorite games of the first 3 years of the PS3 were, and PS4 where you are, and which system's your favorite thus far in the current life cycles. So thanks again actually, before I go into the final send-off, we got to make sure that you follow us on PSU.com for all of your PlayStation news, where you find this podcast on there as well. We got lots of reviews, news coverage, everything you need PlayStation related. Follow us on Twitter at PSUDOTCOM, so PSU.com all spelled out. Twitch, PSU Live, you'll find us there. Go on Facebook. I think that those are the main three that we get to cover. Oh, PS YouTube, obviously, for all of our video coverage. Podcast also goes up there if you aren't listening to it. But yeah, so stay tuned to PSU for all of your PlayStation news. Thanks for listening to episode 35 of PlayStation Fix, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.